Hey everybody, welcome to Improv FAQ. I'm James Quesada, and in this episode, we're going to talk about introducing long-form improv shows. So I've recommended it before, and I'd be happy to recommend it a million times. Introducing long-form shows is something that is covered in MICK Napier's Behind the Scenes. There's a whole chapter in this book on the idea of how to give context to long form to an audience and how the moments that we take to introduce a show can go a long way to do that. So if you're interested in getting a more detailed breakdown of why it's so important, this is a really great book, a really great resource to check out. Having a good intro is often a missed opportunity for improv teams and shows. An intro can go a long way to set the tone and the expectation of the show, and that can make a pretty big difference in whether an audience enjoys the show. So here are some tips on making use of your intro for a long-form improv show. This first one may be a matter of taste, but a lot of the time the host of a show will come out and do a quick litmus test with the audience and check to see who in the audience has never seen improv before, is here for the first time, and to get people to raise their hands or applaud. My recommendation is to not do that, because sometimes no one will raise their hands or applaud. And that doesn't mean you should skip the intro, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't any first-timers in the audience. It could be that because they're new, they're too nervous to single themselves out. So instead, you should assume that there is at least one person in the audience who's new to improv and will benefit from hearing the intro, unless you personally know every single person in the room, which does happen. What does a good intro sound like? This is my general intro for a long-form show. Everything you're about to see is entirely improvised. All the scenes and characters are made up on the spot, and in a minute, we'll come to you for a suggestion which will inspire our show in various ways. At certain points, we may forget the suggestion, and we will keep improvising anyway. That's pretty generic. It's a good intro if you're hosting a lineup of improv troupes or if you're doing a loose form like a montage. If you're doing a show with a more specific format, you should decide what the audience needs to know and if there's anything that they could know that would help them enjoy the show more. Put it in terms that are clear, fun, and stylish. I also feel like it's good to mention the possibility of failure in an intro. Saying something like, "We may forget the suggestion and we're going to keep improvising anyway," is a nice icebreaker and keeps the audience and the performers feeling loose. Improvised Shakespeare in Chicago has a very professional theatrical intro, and somewhere in the middle of it they say, "If at any point you're wondering where the story is going, so are we." So even if you have a very structured show, you might want to set it up with, "We're going to do blah, 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 and by the end of it, we're going to tie it in a neat little bow," and then tag that with, "or at least that's what we intend to do," or something along those lines to just kind of keep it casual. Those are my main pieces of advice on introing long-form shows. And I feel like at this point, I do a pretty good job with intros, and it does make a difference in the success of a show. But I will tell you this, there's a fine line between being accessible and being condescending, and it took me a lot of troubleshooting and tweaking for me to stay on the right side of that line. And it's been worth it. That's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments if you have any follow-up questions on introducing long-form shows. And let me know if you have suggestions for other questions that you would like to have answered on Improv FAQ.